Welcome back, everyone, to Movies After Midnight. Now with added video feed once
Whoa.
again. Hey everyone, Evie from the future here. You may notice my past self is peddling falsehoods. Due to some technical issues, we weren't actually able to incorporate video into this episode, which I think is just a running gag with our show now. I had some fangs in my mouth because it was going to be a fun little vampire bit, so I have like goofy speech for most of this episode, and that's why. Have fun, everybody. Bye.
Oh my god, I'm in Dracula's
Dirt.
basement.
Yeah, how's...
Christopher Lee, don't do anything to me.
Oh my god.
Oh
Have
my
you seen
god,
that gif of it?
Christopher.
It's like a guy's, he's like running away from the camera, but he keeps like looking back playfully and like stumbling over and being like, ooh.
That's really me. This movie, guys, was making me blush. I was like, oh my
Shit,
god.
We're back. It is no longer December, but Dracula is always with us.
Evelyn and I are starting a cult of Dracula, so he'll be all year round.
Exactly. Why do you think I have this guy on my wall?
Exactly.
Yeah. I've been especially inducted into the cult of Dracula because I got that.
Evelyn's
I got the
been bitten.
teepers. Yep.
And she wanted to. It's gonna be the title of this documentary.
Why do
The
you?
title
Why do
of
you?
this podcast is gonna be story time when Christopher Lee bit me. Emotional.
When I told you I was, you know how I was like sick for 3 weeks at the end of December. That's what was going on.
That's what was going on. When you were down at the hospital, you weren't really at the hospital. You were at Christopher Lee's basement.
Yeah. Christopher Lee didn't die. He just ran. He disappeared into the Ozark Mountains here in Missouri somewhere.
Honestly, every single time I think about how Christopher Lee is dead, I get sad because like he's so hot. I'm like, this life is so unfair.
It's, God gives his hardest battles to his thirstiest soldiers.
God, which that's a good segue. Why did they just hard shift into the like religious epic?
Yeah, I was
direction?
like, Pureflix wishes they could get on this level.
Pureflix could never be as good as this this film was.
Yeah.
This was my favorite.
Also, yeah, I was saying this might be my favorite that we've seen so far. For a lot of reasons. I was saying I think the biggest thing for me is that every character felt a lot more fleshed out and like an actual like character. Like it felt like everyone got their time to be set up and like go wherever their kind of character arc was headed.
Yeah. It's kind of nice. Yeah, the other ones really feel like you're just dropped in.
Yeah, they're like, here's some people, here's Dracula, let's go.
like the first one when she's literally like, help get me out of here, and it's like the first scene and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, literally. Also, I put the script was written by John Elder, and I was like, I wonder if he's related to Pliny, and that's a joke no one's gonna get.
I don't think I understand that one. I thought you were gonna make some joke about him being an elder. That's where
it's a way dumber joke than that.
I gotta say, when it was like when the title sequence was over and then it went into like the film, I was aghast at how 60s it was.
Oh,
There
yeah.
is something about British 60s that like screams the 60s.
Yeah, they were producing all the musicians of that era.
That's probably why. I just like, it's like I really associate the 60s with British 60s.
I just started hearing like the Austin Powers music in my head. But yeah, the titles were kind of iconic. It was very like psychedelia.
Yeah, the title sequence was pretty sick. The other thing that was really wild to me was oh my god, here wait. Was it still in Technicolor?
I don't
Because
think
the
so.
colors still looked pretty wild. That's what really stood out through the whole thing. It kind of starts in the title sequence, but the whole time there's this really cool color thing going on.
The DVD says Technicolor on the back, so apparently it was.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because this is one of 2 Dracula films I have on DVD.
Oh, also the director is a cinematographer by trade, and I thought that really stood out throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, that we were talking about that off podcast, how like you can kind of tell there's like a difference between directors who come from cinematography and directors who come from acting. Mm-hmm. But ironically, I felt like normally cinematography directors aren't as big character people, and this was a big character movie, so
yeah, I'm still not quite understanding the like boob thing. Which, like, but maybe I'm looking at it through the lens of, you know, what we see now. They don't feel particularly exploitative to me.
Yeah, well,
especially this one.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they were exploitative, but they're definitely, like... for some reason, I was going to say salacious, and that is, first of all, a really hard word to say with fangs in your mouth.
Quick, Evelyn. Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
She sells... Jesus.
When I was a kid, I had a little bit of a lisp, and I had to say that, like, every night, like, a bunch of times.
Yeah. I feel like I have fangs, and now I just need to have marbles in my mouth, so I learned to, like...
Or, like, the weird craters on your neck that everybody has in these movies.
Yeah. Well, the ones in this movie were, like, they felt gnarlier than we've had before, because they looked like something out of Star Trek.
I'm so sorry, but I keep coughing, everybody. Oh my god, I'm recovering from the end of a cold. I'm just getting it out of the way.
You've been bit by Christopher Lee too.
Oh no, I'm just so sick. Don't look at my throat, anybody.
This is our podcast is just getting, like, you know how, like, 2000s era, like, YouTube reviewers would always have, like, subplots where they're, like, fighting evil and, like, there's evil versions of them and stuff.
We're making an ARG where it's you and I turning into vampires.
Exactly.
You know, and
write
I will say this film. I gotta let me get in my notebook. This film also, you know, it is very upbeat. You can tell it's like a not a tentpole budget. You know what I mean? It's like a B movie budget, but I think that works in its favor. Because I felt like they made a lot more interesting creative decisions that, like, made the technology, like, work out really well. Like, some of the handheld shots they have in the intro were, I think, very strong.
Or, yeah, even throughout, there were some handheld shots that I thought added, like, a viscerality to the whole thing.
Yeah, because I didn't know how you feel about this, but I felt like this was the first one that actually felt scary.
Yeah, I don't know if it felt... it definitely felt, like, more tense. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, even if I wasn't personally scared, it was like, oh no, what's gonna happen in a way that the others kind of didn't.
Okay, Evelyn, you want us to watch a Serbian film? That's scarier? I'm just kidding.
Kidding. You think Saltburn is messed up? You should be watching Dracula Has Risen from the Grave.
You should be watching. I you know, on that note, I have a sneaking suspicion that J.K. Rowling watched this movie. Because the way Dracula is just Voldemort in this movie, I was like, this is a little sus.
Yeah, because there's the bar at the start where anytime someone says Dracula, it's like record scratch, and everyone, like...
And then he's like, fear of the name only increases fear of the thing. He doesn't say that exact thing. But, I felt it was a little similar, and they're both British, so your move, JK.
Yeah.
We got you figured out.
Voldemort is kind of vampire-coded, though. Like, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
And, like, actually, we'll get into it when we get to that movie. We can put a pin in this idea. I just had another brain blast. But, yeah. Yeah, it really goes in on... on the religious like subtext, but it was like it definitely did it in an interesting way.
Yeah, I thought it was incredibly epic. It felt like okay, you know what really it's a real banger for me. I really love it. The opening of the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm.
How like super like just really epic is the best way to describe it. That's what the opening of this film. Yeah,
that's Anastasia.
That's Anastasia for sure, but that's also kind of operatic as well. If you know,
What's
but
the song from Damn it. Anyway, that's not
there's
important.
like a little bit of a melodramatic edge to like the like religious conflict, and I thought it was incredibly interesting because at first I thought the whole gag and the theme was gonna be hubris, but then it becomes this like atheism versus religion conversation.
Yeah, that was very interesting that they went with that.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense for like Dracula and like, but I guess like, and religion's always kind of implied, but it's not quite the first thing I think of, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've kind of, well, I think especially with even the name, like Dracula has risen, you get this almost like inverted Jesus imagery. So I think they just really like leaned into that.
That's actually such a great point that I didn't even think about.
Well, I was gonna make a joke about it, and then I saw the movie, and I was like, "Oh, that's not a joke. That's just the text."
Yeah, that is literally just the text. Christopher Lee is Jesus.
Exactly. Cause it starts. I liked this movie more than the others too. It felt like we kept coming back to locations, because it starts true. In this church, and there's like a choir boy who he like finds a victim of Dracula who's like hung up in this bell, and I guess that scene is supposed to happen like before the last movie or something. Like, oh, maybe I'm overthinking it, but like,
I thought the whole movie started after. I thought it was like a time skip from the last movie to this vignette, and then another time skip.
Because the lady dies, and someone's like, when will we be free of Dracula? And then there's like a little time lapse where like we see snow come and go, and then after that he's like, yeah, Dracula just died last like a year ago.
Oh, so I guess is it implied that happens before the last movie entirely? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, mostly just because I can't think of a time during the last movie where Dracula would have done that, but like...
He made a quick pit stop to go get some...
Yeah,
he's like, God, you guys suck. I'm gonna go for a minute.
But also, I think this is one of those movies where they're like... fitting into this like complex continuity wasn't really their... They're here to tell a story that's focused on this movie, and so they weren't thinking too strongly about how things fit.
Want a franchise that is planned out for 7 million films, 20 films, and a TV series. This should be Marvel.
Yeah, except, well, they did have the continuity of Dracula's like trapped under ice after he like fell in a lake in the last movie, so... I shrugged. I realized you can't see that on your end.
I did not see the shrug, but you know what? I shrugged back just now. Yeah, Evelyn and I, we can't see each other's video feeds.
Yeah, you guys at home are getting the full you guys get to experience the dramatic irony of knowing what's happening to both of us.
Also, I haven't been on camera like this in a really long time, so like every time you're talking, I'm like, what do I do? And I'm just kind of like looking off to the side.
I'm just like, you know what? These fangs, for some reason, they also kind of encourage like mewing. I'm just sitting here with like my cheeks sucked in, you're like just looks sitting there, maxing,
like, ready for Vogue. You're just voguing to the camera, smizing like America's Next Top Model.
Exactly.
In my hands, I'm holding a photo. Okay, anyway, back to you. Sorry.
But yeah, so. This is where we kind of start the like religious plot is after this, because the local priest has like basically become despondent because ever since this murder happened in the church, or this Dracula whatever, they consider the church as like desecrated, and he says the castle, Dracula's castle's shadow like touches the church, so nobody wants to go into the church. And so he's like completely like despondent and is pretty much like just kind of drinking his sorrows away. And this other, he's the Monsignor, which I didn't know was a title, but I kind of dig it.
I didn't even hear the title. That flew right over my head.
I think his name's Hans later, but like they call him the Monsignor. But he comes to town and he's like, "Hey, why aren't you at the church?" And he's like, "Nobody goes to church." And he's like, "Well, you should go consecrate the castle. You people are stupid for fixating on this Dracula stuff."
Yeah, honestly, I kind of thought it was pretty bananas how this guy just waltzes right into town and is like just being a jerk to everybody.
Yeah.
He's like grilling this poor despondent priest.
Yeah, like...
It felt kind of like in LA Noire when you're really grilling somebody in like a... And that's kind of why I thought the hubris thing was going to be the theme the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, because he kind of ends up becoming one of our primary characters, and I thought he was just going to, like, die or something.
Yeah. I thought it was donezo for him. But the movie kind of fakes you out in that way, but it's like, well done.
Yeah. And then yeah, this is when we really get, because they go up to the castle, and he takes like a cross, it's like a big like person sized cross, like off of the altar, and ties it to his back, and he's like climbing up the mountain, and the priest is following behind him, but he's like getting winded and stuff and falling over, and so it's like this visual metaphor where like the Monsignor with the cross on his back kind of like evokes the image of Jesus carrying a cross. And so then the priest not being able to follow this person who in this scene represents God is like indicative of how he's like faltering and losing his faith and all this shit. Which was, it felt very overt and on the nose, but it was done so well that I was like, you know what, I'm here for it.
Also, I think they like the way they kind of make it a little melodramatic and epic. You really kind of have to commit to the concept in a way, so like it kind of works out that they kind of double down like that. But I had a question about the like altar boy or whatever. Was it implied that he became nonverbal after what he saw?
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Nonverbal?
Well, I think because the very first shot, he's like walking down the street, and I think he has like a quick exchange where he's like, "Oh, good morning," and the other guy's like, "Hey."
Okay, got it. I just need to clarify that at this point in the thing.
Because he's like nonverbal and stuff.
I love when he's outside the door and he's like chanting all that stuff. I was so into that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's I was like, because I've been getting into Warhammer, and Warhammer's very Catholic imagery. And I'm just reminded, like, as someone who grew up Protestant, Catholics have the aesthetic on lock.
Yeah, I went to Catholic school for a little bit when I was a kid. Slay the house down. It was so aesthetic.
Yeah. Erynn wishes she could go back to Catholic school. You heard it here on the podcast.
You heard it here first. I'm actually going to become a Catholic vlogger. I'm in my
Sasuke has
girl
become
era.
Catholic.
Sasuke has become Catholic. I'm going to get my communion.
Yeah.
I have to repent from living in sin with Dracula. Sorry. Okay, we can move on now.
Speaking of living in sin with Dracula, I liked that they had this like, as he gets closer to the castle, there's this like hazy iris effect where it's like the edges of the screen are like in this sepia kind of color.
Yeah. And
it gives this vibe of like Dracula's evil is so powerful, it's like exuding this like atmosphere that just kind of squelches. Oh no, one of my teeth came off. Okay, we're back.
Oh my god, you lost a tooth on live? No, your veneer?
Could you imagine if I just got like vampire veneers?
Vampire veneer teeth. Can I get 2 fangs, please?
Yeah, but it's the vignette is kind of like they're like it's like Dracula is so evil that he's just exuding this atmosphere that kind of like crushes and squelches everything, and it's a good like visual.
Yeah, it was, I think, one of the definitely, it was, you could tell it was where the cinematography director came in really strong.
For sure.
Because I think it was just such a good decision. Because also, this interpretation of Dracula so far has been extremely grounded in reality, I feel like. And so I really like the taking it into this whimsical place again.
Yeah. And like, yeah, like you said, of bringing this like epic quality to it. But also then we get, to continue the previous metaphor, it starts like thundering and stuff as he's like delivering the Latin rites, and it's all very epic. And the priest gets like scared off by the lightning, so again it's like his fear causes him to run away from like God and everything, and he slips and falls and like is led directly to Dracula.
Because like the conclusion of the film is one that is pro-religion, correct?
Yeah, more or
Would
less.
you say? Yeah. So yeah, it's like super interesting how also they use this like father character. It was a really interesting use of a priest. I find that they're either extremely disposable or you get like the like I confess interpretation. But this kind of like fallen from grace, having to redeem himself, was very interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because it's a British film, so there's probably more respect for that type of religious expression.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, so he slips and he like cracks his head and he like bleeds, and the blood runs directly down the rocks through the ice and into Dracula's mouth, which brings him back to life.
Yum, nom nom nom. That's how I imagine when you're like on your period in the ocean and there's a shark. That's how I imagine it works.
Yeah.
This is a side story under 30 seconds. I'm so sorry.
Oh boy, yeah.
My grandma the other day. Okay, so I hike a lot in the woods. That's like what I spend a lot of my time doing. And my grandma the other day, she was like, Erynn, just make sure you never go out on your period or the bears will smell you and get you. I was like, I don't think that's how it works, Grandma.
Where did that start? Because I've heard that too, and I think it's definitely not true.
Like, they're like sharks, like one little drop, and they're going to come running. I'm like, what? Yeah. But I just had to say that, because I mean, Christopher Lee is a shark bear.
Exactly.
There was something a little, I didn't mind that because since they set up the kind of whimsicalness, I almost felt like it worked in the world. It was a little silly, but it didn't take me out of it entirely.
Yeah, and it fit the allegory they're doing.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, Christopher Lee is speaking again.
It's better than a dog peeing on Christopher Lee to...
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm coming for you, Freddy Krueger. What do you got to say about it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that alone, like, kind of sets up the difference between Dracula being this fallen nobility in his castle and Freddy being, like, some guy from the suburbs.
Little weirdo. Yeah, that's true. Actually, kind of funny enough, I have one of my notes here that I took, was that the entire time during the God allegory, I couldn't help but think of that one. I don't actually think it's in one of the original films. I think it's just in the remake. But one of the kids goes, "Oh God," when he's like sees Freddy Krueger, and the evil Freddy Krueger goes, "No, just me." I kept thinking of this whole film because that's kind of what the vibe was the whole time.
It kind of is. Yeah, but I like Dracula's, Christopher. He's speaking again. This script was good enough that Christopher Lee was like, you know what, I'm gonna engage with it.
It kind of surprised me. I was like, I had to rewind. I was like, wait, was that him?
And then because the Monsignor like sets this big cross up in front of Dracula's door, and he grabs the priest and he's like, who has done this? Who put up lawn decorations in front of my house?
This makes me sick. I don't even celebrate the holidays.
I mean, that just
Dracula is the Grinch in Whoville.
Yeah, no. That's a movie. Write that down.
I'm just here to say unhinged things. Evelyn's trying to give actual analysis.
Yeah. I mean, no. We're both on an unhinged wavelength right now, I think.
It's after midnight.
It is. The lunacy is kicking in.
Exactly.
So then, the Monsignor goes back to his hometown, and we find out he's like, I guess he's like letting his wife and her, or not his wife, his sister and her daughter stay with him. And there's this weird exchange where he's like, oh, you're about as good as a wife, and she's like, almost as good. And I'm like, that's a weird fucking, like, gag.
I'm so glad you brought up that scene, because that scene gave me like an existential crisis, because she's like literally like she takes off his shoes for him, and like puts on his slippers, and like I was like,
it's very,
wow, I can't, that is wild to me.
Yeah, it was a little off.
Any eligible bachelors out there, do not expect that from me.
Or anyone.
Or anyone, you know? Yeah, and also, I felt like it was also interesting how... I felt like, okay, that setup fed into that, like, conversation he has. It's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but it jumps into the atheist conversation, because he exists in this extremely entitled space the whole time. You know what I mean? But like, I found it so conflicting, because I couldn't tell. He was such an interesting, like, half protagonist that I couldn't tell if the film was endorsing his behavior or if he, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which, like, I know we talked about in the last movies how, like, the films always seem to be kind of like pro, like, finding the middle. And I don't like. This movie kind of does that, but with its, like, theming being so overtly religious, it doesn't really... It's hard to take middle ground on that, I feel like.
Yeah. And he's not really redeemed in the end. Like, he kind of is, but, like, not in the same way as, like, you know, the priest.
Yeah. Although, and we get... Yeah, speaking of... that whole arc, the next scene we are introduced, because she mentions her daughter's boyfriend's going to be coming over, and then we're introduced to a shirtless Paul, who's established as being a college kid, and that's like his defining.
Get off the stage.
I don't know what this says about me, that I wasn't like, guys are off the menu where I'm concerned, but I was like, yeah, he's all right.
I couldn't agree with you less. And guys are on the menu
maybe that shows how far, like, off the reservation I am, because I'm like,
no, he kind of like he kind of feels, I think he feels a little too Chris Pratt for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wrote somewhere he does have kind of like a. I mean, I didn't mind him, because I was like, he's kind of like a charming doofus. Which is funny, because, like, his whole character is supposed to be, like, you know, someone who comes from, like, learning it, or, you know, is educating himself and is, like, a knowledgeable guy, but he just seems like kind of a doofus.
Yeah, because there's this really interesting subtext to the whole religion versus atheism conflict. where the conflict is religion versus atheism, but the film keeps making these interesting statements about university culture. But I couldn't tell if they were extreme. It felt like something that was extremely British.
Yeah. Well, I
Does that
guess
make sense?
that's the other thing. Is it's like religion versus atheism, but neither side of that debate is really portrayed as being like bad. Because it's like even when
So Metropolis, it's like you have to have the head and the hands, and together you have the heart. That's anatomy for you.
yeah. But like, because we have him like talking about being an atheist and stuff, but he's not like, he's not a dick about it. He's like chill. He's just like, I don't believe in this stuff.
Yeah, how common was that kind of open discussion in the 60s for Britain?
As someone who wasn't alive in the 60s in Britain, I am not sure.
Evelyn, answer these questions for me. You should know that answer. But yeah, because I couldn't tell if it was like something I was like, I mean, I think it's like a little bit reading from a modern lens that doesn't feel as groundbreaking as it probably was then.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the atheism reveal is the crazy. That guy is the worst. I really don't like his character at all. He like throws a fit.
Yeah. Sorry, 1 second.
Oh no, you're perfect.
Recording a podcast.
Evelyn, they're gonna find out you're a vampire.
Yep. Night.
Oh no, they're gonna know, Evelyn, you're a vampire.
Yeah, they're gonna find out.
Don't let them see your fangs.
I think we're back.
Slime.
But yeah, I wrote the conversation at where they're having dinner. I wrote, do you remember that meme? It was from like Wife Swap or something, where there's the lady who's like freaking out because someone's not a Christian or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like those really punk kids too. They're all like, they're like down with the government, and she's like, oh my god. The one I thought you were gonna bring up though is I thought you were gonna bring up that Will Ferrell SNL sketch where they're all having dinner and like it's like all the clinking on the plates, and then they keep getting into a fight.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I hate you, you big fat turd.
Yeah. Yeah, where were we here?
We were at the... Well, I guess we kind of skipped the bar a little bit. We got ahead of ourselves. We got to the atheism conversation.
Well, I wrote, this movie has the most, the most transparent Madonna horror complex I've ever seen on film. Also,
okay, there is, like, a male assault in this film. Or, like, an almost male assault in this film. And I thought it was wild.
Yeah.
Because you don't really see that a lot. It was very horrifying.
It was...
She gets him super drunk, which I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry, I keep fucking up your timeline.
Yeah, no.
Back to you.
No, well, yeah,
I'm like, want to talk about this thing that happens in 30 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the podcast. We're here to get people to watch the movie. We're not here to, like, substitute watching the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we get, what's her name? I think her name's Xena, and that made me chuckle.
She is a warrior princess.
But she's like
we have Xena the Pick-Me.
Yeah. Well, because
Evelyn and I have been talking about Pick-Me's a lot.
Wait.
And so I was like kind of triggered at this movie. No, I'm just kidding.
But well, like I said, is a very transparent, because he's like dating this girl who's like, her uncle is a church guy, and she's always like presented like they have her like sleeping with a little doll, so she's like this like infantilized like child, like totally free from sin, whatever. And then there's like the lusty barmaid girl who's like wants to get in Paul's pants, and
it's like dating everybody, and then almost assaults Paul and gets Paul drunk.
Yeah, because he's like, she's they go to dinner with her parents, and she keeps trying to kind of Maria is the girl he's dating, and she keeps trying to kind of give him outs and be like, oh, Paul's not from here, that's why he doesn't go to a church. And he's like, well, actually, I don't go to a church because I'm an atheist. And it's like record scratch. And so he's like, well, damn, I kind of fucked that up. So he goes back to the bar.
Well, because it's even... Wait, like, I want to point out one other thing about that interaction. Because I thought that it was a very interesting back and forth. I thought it was very well written. Because he's like... He says one kind of controversial thing. I forget exactly what it is. And he says, that's what I like about you. I like you. You're so honest. And then they get on the church conversation, and he's like, I'm an atheist. And then he starts, like, throwing a fit, like male Karen, crying, screaming, throwing up. And then he's like, well, I thought you wanted me to be honest. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's almost like a social critique kind of.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting about, like, the way they ping-ponged back and forth. Because it's so fascinating how the one who's, like, collegiate is more interested in the conversational aspect, whereas the one coming from strictly religion is, like, super, like, hard-nosed. Which, like, in the end, his hard-nosedness is right in certain circumstances. So it's very interesting how it plays the middle field, like you said.
Yeah.
But then they go to the bar.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, I screwed up my date, give me a drink. She's like, oh, you never drank this.
He did what every guy does. He said, oh, didn't work out, I gotta go to my other girl who I know is into me.
Which, I mean, that's what makes the following scene kind of awkward, because he's like, I think
oh my god, yeah.
There. And she's like, he gets very, very, like, inebriated, and then she's like, oh, hey, like, she takes him up to his room, and then he falls on the bed, and she's like, gonna, like, take off his pants and stuff.
Yeah, it's also kind of implied that I think she gives him more alcohol than he thinks he has.
Yeah.
Which I was aghast.
Yeah, it's very... Yeah, it's really interesting for...
You know, I mean, storytelling-wise, it does set up for why she becomes the first person kind of got.
Yeah.
She's kind of like the first body in the movie, in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Again,
it is very, like I said, it's just very transparent, where we have, like, good girl who is, like, super good, and bad girl who is, like, super problematic.
Yeah, good girl who, like, is sleeping with a literal doll and is, like, 30 years old.
Like,
literally. Whoa. Which, I mean, nothing against, like, stuffed animals and 30-year-olds.
Yeah, what's that supposed to mean? I don't have anything next to me.
I'm just kidding.
Listen, the blahage is a trans culture thing. But yeah, so... Cause Maria is like, no, I'm gonna sneak out and go, like, talk to Paul and, like, see how he's doing. And then as she walks in, as Xena's about to, like, undress him and shit, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? Stop that.
Well, then she's standing there, and then she starts trying to, like, take his pants down. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, she tries a couple times, like.
It's like great, and then she's like, oh, well, you know, you set him up. You're his girlfriend. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? What on earth? But one thing, really quick side note about, like, her going from her house to their house. The town, the, like, map paintings in the set, gorge. It's, like, all German expressionists, too. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, because it's, like, the town sets are kind of presented with the same grandiosity that they gave the castle sets in the previous movies. And it, like, it sets up a really, really neat atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it works really, really well. Oh my god, I'm sorry about all this coughing. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh god.
I didn't just remove my fangs. What are you talking about?
No god, just me. Evelyn, did you just remove your fangs?
No,
How are you able to do that? How did you conquer the vampireness so quickly?
It's magical. I had to do whatever the fuck he did in the last movie where he, like, brands himself with a cross and, like, pulls down whatever. I can't remember.
You know, I will say that about this protagonist. He was, like, a fair fight with Dracula.
Yeah, I was like, this guy's pretty quick on his feet, actually. Like, he gets knocked down, he gets up again, comes up with a new plan.
I get knocked down, and I get up again.
But yeah, so after she, like, walks home, now Xena, the barmaid, gets, like, chased on a carriage by the priest, which is, like...
It was honestly a little bit wild. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. That was the one part of the movie that felt goofy to me. I don't know why.
Felt like a Ichabod Crane getting chased by the Headless Horseman a little bit. But also, I got a little confused. I got a little lost in the sauce there. Because I thought the implication was that it was, like, nighttime and she's got to get home quick because it's nighttime. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's daytime and she's getting chased down. I was like, damn, how far did she have to walk?
Yeah, I think that was just, like, really inconsistent day for night shooting.
You know what? I'll give the movie that. Maybe that's real. That's you know.
Because I did think
I had to bring it up because I was like, did I miss it?
There are a few shots where I was like, this is the most day that day for night has ever been.
Yeah, I was like, it's like the afternoon. He was right. She did have a long way to walk. God, it's her next day in the afternoon. She's not even home yet. And also, he kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, we get one shot where she's, like, cleaning up and you see the priest, like, watching her through the window.
Yeah. That was such a funny shot. That's the one that took me out. When it, like, pans over and then he's, like, looking through the little window.
Like a monster in the window, one might say.
Like a monster in the window. Ooh. Oh, Evelyn went to film school. How dare you bring that up and trigger me? How dare you bring that up and trigger me? I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so the carriage, like, chases her and she gets away, but then he's just it turns out she was chased right into the clutches of
and that scene was so hot. I was like aghast at that. Oh my god, Christopher Lee like rips her shirt open too. I was like, oh yeah. Oh my god.
He's like, yeah, I feel like he's a lot more like saucy in this movie because like the other ones he like comes towards him and like bites him and stuff, but this one he was like like ripping the clothes, doing like little nibbles on the cheek, like
yeah. I was like, what is going on?
I was like, yeah, I'm not even straight, and I'm like,
that's so funny.
I was
when I was a kid, I felt it. I felt the fan. When I was a kid, I was super into Saruman the White, so like, this is just a natural.
I didn't know that, but why does that? Yeah.
Did you not know that? I didn't tell you that.
I did not know that. That is so funny. Like, circle is complete kind of thing.
Because, you know, Lord of the Rings did overwhelm me. I never fully got into it because it was just too overwhelming for me. But I really loved Christopher Lee.
How many subs for a Lord of the Rings viewing on Movies After Midnight?
We'll watch the whole trilogy from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, extended editions, like all 72 hours or whatever.
I liked the Ralph Bakshi. I could get into it with the Ralph with him.
Those are pretty.
Those slay the house down. But anyway, back to.
I keep seeing where I wrote Dracula, and I keep thinking I wrote Draculaura, because that's where my mind's at, I guess.
You're just is that the Monster High doll?
It is.
That's so funny. We gotta do Monster High cosplay. We gotta do Monster High.
Oh shit, yeah. Do all the Monster High movies. So yeah, she gets got, and yeah, she has those really gnarly fucking neck scars, and I did think like, so far she was the actress played her so much more interestingly than we've gotten like in so many victim characters, because like we kind of follow her for this next bit where she's like aware of what happened but not, and she's kind of like she does Dracula's will, but she's like not sure about it, and like she really still kind of wants to be with Paul, but like
yeah,
you
I
see
think
her
it's
kind of like,
super well done.
yeah, you see a lot of like uncertainty in her, and I was like, that's good like character work.
Also, I really loved the visual storytelling of that part too, because the way she like covers it up with the ribbon, I thought was so interesting.
Yeah.
And it like added another layer, I think, of tension to it. It was really a good example of dramatic irony working out in film.
Oh, for sure.
Did you ever read that? Did you ever get those like in elementary school? It was called like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
No, everyone I know did, and somehow that just passed me over completely.
Oh, that's okay. There, a really quick side note, under 30 seconds. There's one of the stories that I kept thinking about in this because in the story, it's like about this girl who has like this ribbon on her neck.
I
And
do
like
know
she
this
meets
story.
her. Yeah, I kept thinking of that one, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, everybody has referenced. Everyone's referenced Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. It's a secret sleeper film that influenced everything.
I mean, it kind of because that's what I like about, especially in horror, whether it's like literature or film, is a lot of times when you'll watch a movie that you really like, and then you'll watch another movie and realize it was what the people who made the one you really like were watching. And like you can trace these like lineages, and I guess that's not unique to horror, but I feel like it's a genre for whatever reason that like really likes referencing itself.
I think because horror is a very tight knit.
Yeah. You still there? The call got very quiet.
Oh yeah, I was just listening for once.
That's pretty good.
I was just letting you finish for once and not cutting you off.
The priest, so the priest shows up and he like takes a room, and that's where you kind of see Xena is now part of Team Dracula. I just visualize like Sonic Heroes where it's her, Dracula, and the priest like in the trio.
that would slay. I keep seeing a bunch of Sonic Heroes. That's so funny you brought up Sonic Heroes. I keep seeing a bunch of Sonic Heroes memes online. I don't know why.
That is niche as hell. That's not even for me.
So random. It's so funny. I have to send you one later then. Okay, but anyway, back to this.
But, so, because the barkeep is like, oh, we don't have any rooms here. And she's like, oh, we got that one room. And the barkeep's like, why did you tell him about that? I want him to leave. But also there was another good visual where the priest, like, he goes down to, like, he somehow gets Dracula's casket into like the lower rooms in this place, and he goes to meet Dracula, and he sits down next to the casket, and there's this like pile of chains next to him, and it's like a nice visual of how he's like kind of shackled and not in control of his own like decisions.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, that's such a hashtag film school moment.
Oh, hell yeah. It does feel
yeah,
like
and
that.
then they have Xena come down, and she's like really happy to see Dracula, which I thought was interesting. Like, she's the
real.
happiest anyone has ever been.
I'm telling you, every single guy in the Dracula franchise, they see Dracula and they get like stressed out because he pulls up in a second. He just shows up and all the women are like, yeah.
So I do gotta say, because he's like, I want you to bring me the daughter of the Monsignor, and she's like, why do you need her? You got me. And then Dracula gets a little problematic because he slaps her down, and he's like, do what I say. And I'm like, I am beginning to think that this evil vampire who serves the devil might not be a nice person.
All I'm saying is that I was jealous.
I was just gonna be like, do we have to cancel Dracula? We need to have this talk
Dracula
now.
Yeah, I think the worst thing he's done is slap someone, actually, and I think that's what we need to cancel him for. When we cancel him, that's what we
none
focus
of the killing
on.
people. That's that's whatever.
The killing,
but, like,
that's okay, but I think we should really hashtag Dracula is over party.
but also I like that moments after he's like, get her for me. She ends up coming to the bar, and Xena, like, jumps her with a burlap sack and starts, like, choking her out. And I was like, she gets to work fast.
Yeah, because it's super interesting, because I think it's an interesting, like, female versus female, because, like, they're both pick-me fighting with each other.
A little, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I found that incredibly interesting, because at the end of the day, the whole Madonna whore complex, it's like women exist in both spaces.
Yeah.
But it can't exist as that. So it was almost like a really interesting way to show an internal conflict. That's fully me reading this from, like, a my lens reception theory, whatever. You know what I mean? That's not what was intended. I'm projecting that onto the movie, but I thought it was very interesting.
I mean, it is definitely an aspect where you're like, this was written by a bunch of guys in the 60s.
Which... also who want women to fight over them, because do you remember that one guy at the bar? It's like he's always like, when he's about to go to the dinner earlier in the movie, and he's like, oh yeah, look at what her mom looks like, because that's what she's gonna look like when she's old.
Yeah.
And he's literally so ugly. It's always the ugly guys.
Literally.
Who have all these opinions about women.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Except for Dracula.
Except for Dracula, which is why he's pulling him left and right.
Exactly. But, so there, yeah, we get another, it kind of reminded me of Frankenstein, because Paul shows up and they're like, oh, Maria went down to, like, talk to you, and he goes down, and, like, she's gone, because she's been taken to Dracula, and he goes back upstairs, and he's like, she's not there, and they're like, yeah, she is. And he goes back down and looks around, and he goes back up, and he's like, she's not there. And they're like, yeah, she is. And, like, it cuts back to Maria, like, Dracula moving in on her. So you do get, it works the way it's played. And it's, like, it's kind of a tense scene, but also it's really funny. Because he's just, like, kind of going up and down and, like, looking around and, like...
He's
I don't know where she
is,
guys.
Super himbo protagonist for sure, and that
so
really
much.
like drove it home.
Yeah,
you know, he's like a lot. He, you know, what kind of reminded me in a weird way.
Who?
He reminded me of George Lazenby in From Russia with Love.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
You see what I mean?
Wait. Okay, yeah.
He had that kind of quality to him, where he's like very rough around the edges, and like. But he's kind of like an idiot.
Yeah.
He's not the playing a chess in his mind game. You know what I mean? He's a little like, brute force, you know?
Was that just male protagonists in Britain in the 60s? Was that just the mold?
That's just the guys they liked in Britain in the 60s, apparently.
But yeah, eventually he hears her, he yells her name, and that like scares Dracula off, and he finds her. And so, yeah, Xena goes back to Dracula, and Dracula kills her for like having failed him. And this was actually a good scene, because he tells the priest, he's like, destroy her body, and like the priest is like taking her to like burn her body in the fireplace, because vampires are biodegradable. But
Killer fertilizer.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it, because I was like, damn, vampires are the most, like, environmentally conscious monster to kill, because, like, you set a werewolf on fire, you've got, like, werewolf bones and shit. You set a zombie on fire, that's how you get Return of the Living Dead, but, like, vampires, they just dust, you're good.
It's ironic in a way, too, because I feel like rich people contribute more to the earth being destroyed.
That's why burning them is the least.
So, like, they gotta return back to the earth. Yeah.
But you see, it's another scene of the priest, like, doing what Dracula tells him, but being very, like, obviously not comfortable or happy, and, like, very fucked up about it. And so it was another good, like, character moment.
Yeah, the whole time, if anything, he has the most interesting arc in the whole film.
For sure, especially because I feel like usually when a character hits that threshold, it's like they're gone, like they're... Yeah.
Yeah, you're really rooting for him to come back around. Because, like, in a way, you almost just want him to stand up for himself. Because the whole
Yeah,
film he
kind
doesn't
of.
stand up for himself to anybody,
Which is,
including
yeah.
like the guy, you know. And it seems like his fatal flaw that keeps getting him into trouble.
Yeah, which, well, I think that's even his arc, because if you take it to, like, a broader religious discussion, it's almost like his being afraid to stand up to him for himself is what leads him into the clutches of Dracula or the devil or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yeah, like, having that finally, like, asserting himself a little is kind of like when he makes the choice to do what has to be done at the end of the movie.
You hear that, everybody? Asserting yourself is godly.
Exactly.
How to be a godly woman.
Vampire girl defined.
Evelyn and I are movies after midnight. Hard relaunch. We're gonna be.
Yeah, and this is where I wrote about the village map paintings being really good.
Oh yeah, the map paintings were so. I've been so into map paintings lately, and these ones really
so
were
cool.
stellar. Yeah.
And this is where the movie really gets into, like, we start playing out the old Mina Harker shuffle, because Maria goes home.
I've been holding it back this whole time.
I'm proud of you for holding it back this long.
Thank you so much. It's been really hard.
But yeah, she goes home and is, like, recovering from, like, the Dracula being inside her head a little. And Paul makes literally the worst decision possible.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I was like, hey, she's recovering from Dracula being inside her.
Not yet. Give us a minute.
Yeah, honestly. Okay, sorry. Back to you.
But yeah, and Paul does another himbo move where he's like, I have a letter I need to give to Maria to see if she's okay. And he goes to the priest and he's like, hey, here is her address. Give her this letter. And so, yeah, the priest
it's like,
tells
that's a
Dracula
terrible
where she
idea.
is.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
And yeah, this is where this is where things get really steamy, because Dracula appears, and then we get the great visual of her, because she's sitting there and her doll that she was previously clutching is now on the table, so you get the sense that she's had this, like, brush with maturity. And then Dracula comes in and he starts like, you know, nibbling on her cheek a little, like, giving her the, like, the romance treatment.
Christopher Lee said, yeah, I'll keep making these stupid movies that I don't like, but I'm gonna understand the assignment and act my heart out.
I am here to fuck.
I'm gonna give the people what they want.
And yeah, but then it cuts to, as he's doing that, it cuts to this shot of her. She, like, reaches for her doll and holds its hand, and then it, like, falls off the bed, so it's like she's no longer a child anymore. Her innocence has been taken.
Yeah, that scene kind of took me out a little bit. It took me out of it a little.
I thought it was kind of a great. It's one of those. It's like a lot of the things we've been talking about, where it's like so over the top that it doesn't make sense unless you commit to the premise, like, fully. Yeah,
that's fair. It was camp for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, and so now she's been bit. And we do the whole, the thing where she's, like, feeling sick, and they're like, well, we'll close the windows, and, like, then Dracula comes again and opens the window, and then they're like, I don't know what's happening to her, and, like, all that. Like, it's very I was surprised at how much I was like, oh yeah, this again, because we've done it in, like, the last 3 movies. But yeah, so Dracula shows up again, and this time the Monsignor comes in and he, like, chases him away across some of the rooftops, because they're getting mileage out of these rooftops. It's very good.
It looks so good.
And then the priest blunt force traumas him by just hitting him with a really big rock that, like, kind of takes him out. And this was where we get back to his arc, the Monsignor, because he he makes it back home and, like, passes out. And he calls for Paul, and he's like, "You're the only one that can, like, do this now." And he says something like, I trust him because I know he loves her," or something like that, where he's like, there's still the difference of, like, worldview between him and Paul, but he's also like, I still know that this guy's ultimately a good person and can do what needs to be done. So, like,
do you think, like, there was an engagement gone wrong in, like, the director or writer's life? And he was having a hard time with his in-laws, and that's why he wrote this way?
It's just his version of a Marriage Story.
his version of, yeah, exactly. This movie is a confession. If you're his in-laws, don't watch it. You'll be like, wait a minute. We thought about you being an atheist. Oi, we thought about being atheists. What do you think you're doing? Making a film about our lives? That's terrible. That's terrible. I gotta work with my dialect coach more.
Yeah.
The only fear is I'll get stuck. Yeah. We went two different directions. But...
Oi there, pretty mama. I used to be an atheist.
I think you'd look real good with this eyeliner.
Now I'm just visualizing the fact we never got an Elvis Dracula movie. Could you imagine?
I mean, like, they just got to cast on Austin Butler before he gets too many dialect coach sessions in.
Yeah, exactly. No, cast him and force him to do the Elvis voice and get stuck in it again, so he has to, like, get another dialect coach.
Yeah, he's first day meeting with him as, like, his director. So, I hate to say it, but I'm gonna need that voice. I'm gonna need you to bring it back.
He's like, "No, I swore never to do it again." We need a movie about Austin
he wouldn't say
Butler
that. He
getting
would say,
more movies.
"No, I swore to never do that voice again."
Yeah, he just... I almost swallowed one of my teeth. I'm taking these out again.
Evelyn, no, not another veneer.
I put him back on, and I was like, I can't do this. I gotta... The Elvis voice forced him out. Elvis is the
Elvis
antithesis of
does
vampires.
Not want to be a vampire.
That's what... Yeah, Back in this movie.
Back to the actual vampire movie.
So yeah, Paul is like, okay, I'll do all these Dracula rituals you told me to do. And he's like, I know who can help me do these rituals. My friend, the priest, who definitely doesn't work for Dracula. And he's like, hey, can you help me do this stuff?
He's a
and
good
the priest
man.
is like, but then, and yeah, he hits Paul. He gives Paul a good little bonk over the head with a candle holder. And then and then we
just
get
like, it's like Looney Tunes in this movie at this point. Yeah. Everybody's just hitting
everyone. Everyone has brain damage.
Yeah.
That's why he's a himbo. He just has blunt force, like, there's like blood pools in his frontal cortex.
Oh no! He played sports growing up.
But then we get another good, like, culmination of this arc where the priest is like, undoing all the stuff they set up, and then he goes to take the crucifix off of her, and he, like, can't bring himself to do it because it's like this conflict in him where he's like doing what he's told, but then the cross reminds him of, like, how far he's fallen, basically, and so he kind of breaks down, and Paul, like, recovers and like gives him the third degree, which I like. Even Paul calls that out, where he's like, how could you, a priest, end up doing Dracula's work? He's like, listen, you weren't there.
He said you would have done the same if you saw his eyes.
If you'd have been there, if you'd have seen it.
If you would have been in the same room with him, you would have felt the charisma oozing off his body.
But also he's like, this is, like, once he knows what he has to do, Paul does a pretty good job, because he's like, take me to Dracula. He's like, I don't want it. Well, you're gonna. And he brings, like, the biggest steak I have ever seen in a vampire movie.
Yeah, it was pretty bananas. I thought
like
this
Looney
scene,
Tunes.
I have a note on this scene, and all it says is, this is so metal.
Yeah, and he's like, Yeah, and he's like goes and stakes Dracula, and it's like this was the most like visceral blood I've seen in one of these movies. It wasn't like
it was a lot.
bright
The blood
reddish
in this
pink.
movie
It
was
like
getting me.
yeah. But they have this whole arc about how Paul's like, the priest is like, you have to say the prayer to like really defeat Dracula, and Paul's like, I don't do that, you do it.
Do you remember that video? It's Jeff Sluter the Sluter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When he's at the end and he's like, Paul. That's how I felt watching this.
But yeah, so Dracula escapes, but then because Dracula kind of like beats the shit out of Paul a little, and Paul like runs back to the fireplace and like throws coals on Dracula, and I'm like, this guy's quick on his feet.
This is what I was saying. I was like, wow, this fight is wild.
He's not a planner, but when he's in the moment, he figures stuff out.
Yeah, because the other one, oh my god, I'm completely forgetting his name. Oh my god, who played Van Helsing?
Oh, Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing is just getting his ass beat.
Yeah, that's the difference. Paul he's not nearly as smart, but he's a little more like active.
yeah, he's at least putting up a fight.
He didn't put his points into wisdom or intelligence, but he put them into like dexterity.
That's a good way to put it.
But yeah, so Dracula's able to escape, and Paul suddenly he's on horseback and he just kind of knows where the village is, but he like pursues him because he knows he's taking Maria back to the castle. And all the townspeople in that town.
Did you ask Maria if she wants to go back with you, or if she's moved on now?
Maria, stop! Don't go with him. And Erynn just texts me at that part, like, "Hey, you don't know what she wants."
Hey, ask her what she wants first. Some people don't want to be saved.
It could be a CNC thing. You don't know.
Oh my god. They're in a dom sub relationship. Then you don't understand their boundaries.
I was about to be shady, but then I realized it was like, wait, the people I would be shady at would know.
And they're watching. That's the other bad thing.
So they go. Paul gets to the town, and all the people in the bar. He's like, I need to get to Dracula's castle, and they're like, okay, fuck off with this Dracula shit. We're tired of this. We're tired of you people coming to this town, and like, they're just done with it. And
which
they're
I
like,
love how that's kind of been a trend in all of them.
Yeah, well, even in the Frankenstein movies, they kind of had that where like every successive movie, they're like, we don't want anyone who has anything to do with this. Please go away. But they're gonna like lock the door and like I guess lock him up until the morning or something, and the altar boy from earlier is like helps him out and is like helps him get to the castle. So like even he, like as minor a character as he was, even he kind of got his arc where he in his own way helps. He sort of faces fears kind of and like helps take out Dracula, which I thought was cute.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really great point. Because in the beginning, he doesn't even want to go into the room to show the priest.
Yeah.
So it is a really good.
So him being
really good writing. Honestly, I get why Christopher came back.
Yeah, literally.
Talking.
Yeah, good job, Pliny the Elder, John Elder.
Good job, John Elder. Way to be a good elder.
Although this is because Dracula's he tells Maria to like move the cross. Also, I like this is Christopher Lee being a good actor because he's like looking away from the cross, but also every time he gestures or talks about it, he has such visceral like disgust on his face, or he's like, "Get that thing out of here!" And he's like, me if there was a cockroach in the house or something like.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Christopher Lee, he's just honestly the whole last half of this movie reminded me of how good of an actor he is. Because,
Yeah,
you know
well,
what?
yeah.
I love an actor who will just, like, it doesn't matter what level of film it is or whatever, B-movie, XYZ, he is putting his whole everything into it.
His whole Christopher Lee-ussy into it.
His Christopher Lee-ussy, exactly.
Down there had an aneurysm trying to figure that one out. But so Maria, like, drops the cross, and it felt like in DOA when you, like, knock someone out of the stage and then they, like, bounce off a couple things and they land in a different part of the stage and then you continue to
I know
fight.
Exactly what you mean, yes.
Her dropping the cross.
I didn't know you were going to bring that up right now, and you're so right. It
viscerally...
did feel like that. I was like, where are we? That's such a good comparison, though. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, it, like, plants itself bottom up despite the physics of that not really making a lot of sense. And then Paul gets there and, like, pretty much immediately, like, they struggle a little and he knocks Dracula over the railing and Dracula falls onto the same cross. And he gets... This might be my favorite Dracula death in the series, though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, it was a little incidental where, like, usually you have, like, something happens and then it's just several minutes of Christopher Lee being like your dad when you play fight with him and he, like, is playing the villain and he's like, oh no, I've been defeated, arg, ugh, oh no, ow, jeez, holy crap, I'm dying. But this, they added, because he's, like, impaled on the cross, and then the priest shows up and starts praying, which is, like, his art coming full circle, where he's, like, you know, come back to God and, like, standing up against Dracula and all this stuff. And so, like, there's the epicness of the prayer and, like, what that means, and everyone's character moments kind of coming to fruition, so it's not just Dracula being like, oh shit, I'm dead now. And so it felt it had the most weight of any Dracula death, I guess.
You know what? I agree with that. I think definitely it's the best one too. I think it also hits different because the writing was, I think, better on the whole, so it feels more impactful.
Yeah, for sure. And then we get, which I guess, because that's, like, the final moment, like, Paul kind of gives the sign of the cross and, like, hugs Maria, and so that's supposed to be him, like, reconciling with Christendom, but it's not like he had a moment where he, like, falls to his knees and is like, I'm gonna give my life to Jesus or anything.
It almost feels like a high five to God.
Yeah, kind of, where he's like, I got my way and you guys got your ways, and I respect your ways a little more now, so we good.
Yeah, I think part of the other reason we don't get the full follow-up is these films don't have a third act.
Yeah. I mean, well, even that
done.
was like way more than we've gotten in any of the other movies.
Yeah, they all just kind of like, okay, now it's done. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's over now.
Yeah, which, like, I think it works for not
I
to.
think films should start experimenting with that more.
What, with, like, kind of the more sudden ending?
Yeah. I actually think some films would benefit from that greatly, and I don't even mean that shady. Like, I don't even mind a 3-hour film. I think a 3-hour film is fine. Yeah. I just think, like, it might be cool to experiment with it for certain films that don't need to be that long.
Yeah, because some films... Well, also, some films you don't need it, because it's, like, everything important has happened, and, like, any falling action would just going to be spinning your wheels. Mm-hmm. I was about to start naming films, and I'm like, I'm not here to hate on movies right now. We can move past that.
I can't say I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. Oh. I also haven't seen Barbie yet. But I love the hell out of Lawrence of Arabia and The Irishman. That slays. I need to mentally prepare myself to watch Killers of the Flower Moon, so I haven't seen that one. Not because I don't want to watch it, but because I know it's going to be an incredibly hard watch.
Something about the words, I haven't seen Barbie yet, but I love the hell out of Lawrence of Arabia is like the most film person statement I have ever heard in my life.
That's everything you guys needed to know about me.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time with this one.
I gotta say it's my favorite one so far. I'm having a good time. It's
also,
delightful.
Because what was this? This was 68, I think. And so this is the last one. The next one is technically a 70s movie. So we're like shifting decades up again.
Is it gonna be like you know what one was really I didn't feel this way about Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street as much, but let me tell you, Friday the 13th, that is like a transition through time. That is like a little that is so fascinating to see.
Yeah, well
and I wonder if they're gonna feel like that.
Well, yeah, because it's like we cover a lot of decades, but we also kind of don't, because it's like there was like one in like the late 50s, and then a few of them in the 60s. Also, I think I was wrong. I think the next couple are like 69. Sorry. As a millennial, I'm legally obligated to say nice whenever that number comes up. But yeah, so they cover the 60s, and I think they kind of peter out around like the early 70s. So on one hand, they're covering a lot of decades, but it's mostly just the 60s also.
Got it.
Because they exist in the 50s and 70s, but they exist in like the late and early parts of those decades that are basically just like kind of becoming the 60s.
I want to know how similar the 70s ones are going to feel to that Hitchcock film. That last one he did.
Oh, yeah. What's that one called?
Not Torn Curtain. That's the other one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's the necktie guy.
Hey everyone, future Evie here again. The movie we were talking about was 1972's Frenzy. I just wanted to close that loop for you in case you were wondering.
Yeah, that one. I wonder how much they'll feel, how similar they might feel. Because honestly, they might feel similar. Because this one kind of felt like a little Hitchcockian a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're all British.
Yeah, imagine if Hitchcock would have done one of these.
That would have slayed the house down. I think he would have killed it.
I would have been.
Did he ever work with Christopher Lee?
I don't know that he did.
Because he worked with Sean Connery. So maybe it just didn't work out time-wise.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think they really crossed over like that.
Yeah, Christopher Lee, I don't think he'd become the big name that he was until kind of a little after Hitchcock's time.
Yeah,
or after
that makes
Hitchcock's
a lot of sense.
main, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. This one's like
iconic. I'm always terrible at segueing these out. Like I have nothing to leave us on.
How many blah blah blahs would you give it?
Yeah, but I'd give it a blah out of blah.
Excellent. Also, this is perfect timing because my camera feed just cut.
Oh shit.
So excellent. Yeah. That was our hard segue out. My camera feed being like, nope.
Yeah, so we'll see you all next time, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Evie here. If you enjoyed today's episode of Movies After Midnight, consider giving us the old like and subscribe so that you could stay up to date when we drop new episodes. If you didn't enjoy today's episode of Movies After Midnight, consider following me on one of the many social media platforms out there and leaving criticisms or strongly worded hate speech. Either way, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you next time.